Call the North Hero Selectboard to order April 20th and 26th at 5:15 p.m. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none. Bills for payment. The financial snapshot. We have the warrant. Any discussion or questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the warrant.
Harry makes a motion to approve the warrant. Do I have a second?
Frank,
All
second.
right. Frank seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carries. I'll pass this along for signatures. At this time, is there any public comment? Hearing none. On to fire station public works garage project. Don, Andy, would you like to just fill us all in?
Okay, thank you. Did you all have a chance to look at this letter from the First Air Group dated April 14th? There was a link, I believe this was in the package.
No, unless I misunderstood you, I sent an email and I thought you said, well, this is much information.
I completely apologize.
Oh.
I have made a horrible mistake. This is my mistake, not Corinne's. Corinne asked me a question. I answered it in the negative, meaning to answer it in the affirmative. So let me just, this will take a moment longer to explain, but that's really all it will be. So what occurred at the end of March was that as our excavator was working, he discovered soils that smelled like fuel. Not entirely unexpected occurrence, especially when a facility's been dispensing fuel for 54 years. It's not really neither unexpected nor surprising. I made the choice as the representative of the town to not do anything about this ahead of time because I had talked to the Verter group in January to determine if the town needed to do something proactively, and they said absolutely not. Don't do anything when it occurs, that's when you deal with it. So that's what they did. Because there was no noticeable issues with the garage. We had no underground tanks. We had no known contamination. So the excavator discovered this. I immediately called Verter. Verter sent a guy up the next day named Michael Harris. Michael became our contact point with Verter. And you did see the letters that I sent along, a couple of notes about sort of progress reports, what was going on. So really what Michael did was he captured in his letter here dated April 14th. And again, I apologize for this. He captured the entire process. So Michael began testing. We discovered we had in 2 locations, we had contaminated soils. We took those soils, our excavator, Island Excavating, picked those soils up, put them in a truck, drove that truck down to the transfer station, put those on plastic, wrapped them in plastic for eventual disposal. So right now there's about 100 or 110, just right around 100 yards of soils that have to be disposed of. They are considered to be contaminated. So the point is, we handled this absolutely correctly according to the laws of the state of Vermont. We notified Verter. Verter immediately notified the state that we had a site that had some contamination on it. So the town of North Hero did what it was supposed to do. Verter has done exactly what they're supposed to do. We have hired Verter. They become our subcontractor and our representative for everything that has to do with the environmental, with all reports that go to the state, the disposal of material, all those things are all done, all the testing, all done by Verter. And so that really is the outline of Mike's letter here of what Verter has done what they're going to do. I will make sure that everybody gets a copy of this. There are,
I can do that, Don. I'll make sure it's attached to the minutes since we're discussing it, and I'll
Okay.
email it to you all. I think I messed this up because I looked back at our email chain and we were talking about the insurance denial, so, yeah.
and so
Yeah.
anyway, between Corinne and I, we managed to.
We can argue over who's fault it is, but.
So,
I mean, this-
Verter, has done a really top-notch job. They've said, every time we've had a need, they've been out here, because the other thing that happened after we dug down for a while, the water table underneath our site is very high on the side by the garage. It's not high over where the fire station is. So as we dug down, what began to happen is the hole where we had dug began to fill up with water. Not unusual in Vermont. You had a lot of places where there's groundwater. So we have to put in 6 inches, the contract requires 6 inches of stone in the hole. And on that is where you set your footing, your form for your footing. Well, the problem is the water comes up and now it's 6 inches over the top of the stone. Now we have a problem because the water is also contaminated. You can't just pump it out. So what we had to do was we pumped it into a couple of 500-gallon storage tanks, and Verter set up a containment setup, a drum setup with charcoal filters in it, and pumped the water through the charcoal filters and out to the north of the building. So we disposed of the water legally on site by cleaning the water and sending it off. We can't do that with the soil. So, there is a possibility. So the first question is what exposure does the town have left? Well, it is possible that there are other places that we haven't dug up yet, that there might be some contamination. We haven't dug for the water. The water line goes from ground to the building. It's about 115 feet or something like that. We haven't dug that yet, and it's deep. So that's got to go down about 5 feet. So there's a possibility. It's a remote possibility because the areas that we found that were contaminated were very localized. And it's a point that should be made is that some of the soils that are actually contaminated are the place. The state actually considers it, if you're going to put a building over the top of it, it's better to leave a lot of the soils in place. So some of the soils were actually left in place. The state may come back and ask us to do a couple of things. Let me back up here. So anyway, we're talking about exposures that are left. Water line is one. The other one is, it is possible that when we are excavating material out to put in the new stone underneath the paved area in front of the town garage, it is possible we could have some soils there that are contaminated. Likely, because we only have to take out about this much soil before we start putting in our stone and everything else. Only about 18 inches of stone. Contamination was all down below that. So we have 2 areas that are possible, neither of which are particularly likely. We may end up with a little more contaminated soil. Verter has had all the soil, has had all the soil tested. They're expecting the results back in the next day or so. The testing lab typically takes about 2 weeks. They do not believe that there are any, what they call volatile contaminants in the soil. Those would be PCBs, or really the kind of bad things that you get from other kinds of pollution not related to petroleum. They do not think there are going to be any of those. If you have that situation, the soils have to be disposed of in a completely separate manner, and that's a very expensive process. We don't have that. So what we do have is we have contaminated soils. They can be taken to a Casella disposal facility in New York, a Casella facility in Vermont that disposes of them, or there's a place in New Hampshire, in Loud, New Hampshire, called ESPC, and they actually incinerate the soils, and they are the least expensive option. So once Mike gets his test back today, he will begin the process of getting ESPC up here to collect the soils and take them to their final destination. The soils are basically they're heated to such an extent that all of the gases or all of, anything that's related to petroleum is off gas. That's how they work. Then they reuse the soils. Any questions so far?
What about the carbon you were talking about? Where does that go?
Great question. The carbon goes right with the soil. They actually took the carbon from the tanks and put it with the soils. So that's actually gonna go in the same truck with the soils. And that gets disposed of the exact same way. So the state usually accepts the conclusions of Verter or the environmental scientists who deal with this. Sometimes they ask for additional testing. They could come back and say, look, we want more monitoring done. We want to know if there's ever been any contamination out in the wetlands next to it. But Verter did some testing out there, not on the neighbor's property, but on our property, between where the building is and the wetlands is on the east side. So they did some testing because they knew the state would be interested in what's going on. So the state has some options. The state can accept everything that Verter says and simply close the case, and the note goes in the land record. There was some contaminated soils and they were dealt with. That's the most likely scenario. It's not a guaranteed scenario. But that's what Verter thinks is going to happen. And that's what we think is going to happen. Verter's cost to do this work at this point is an estimate of about $36,000. Now, sounds like a pretty big number. But I was involved in a job a couple of years ago where the disposal costs were 15 times that much. It doesn't take long for contaminated soils to become very expensive to be disposed of. So we have a small, very contained soil condition that we've dealt with. The costs are understood for the current situation. We are still awaiting some testing, but assuming that everything goes right, we're going to have these soils disposed of next week. And then another week after that, the state will have all of the paperwork. By sometime in May, we should have this entire incident closed. So now that's the end of the report of what, by the way, Verter, you look at their letter, there's also an estimate in here of all the costs, which you are more than welcome to look at it. I went through every cost with them. In the trailer, we went through them line by line. Why this costs this much? What about this? And they gave me satisfactory answers for everything. We made a couple of changes. It actually made a mistake that they had left something out, and I said, put it in now. I don't want it in later. So there's an estimate. And then for all of you who are really into the minutia, there's a map that shows you where they took all the tests if you really want to know what's going on. So any questions about Verter up to this point or what we've done?
My question is that all in at the 36,000 approximately?
As of right now, Carl, yes.
That's disposal and everything.
Disposal and everything.
Okay.
That's everything. And that includes Island having to go back, Island excavating, our excavators having to go back down there and load this material into the trucks that are coming. They have specialized trucks that come to take the material. So it includes that.
And it includes the people in New Hampshire?
Yes, they're the name of that company, since you didn't ask, is ESMI. They're in Loudon, New Hampshire, and they are the least expensive disposal opportunity. Believe it or not, disposing of it in Vermont is more expensive, primarily because the testing that Casella requires cost about 10 times as much as the testing does for the place in New Hampshire, because Casella's not going to dispose of it. They're going to use it. They're going to spread it out and use it as covering for the landfill, for their landfills. We looked at the option. We did discuss with Verter, we said, we have space. Why can't we just spread this out and let it off gas for however long? He said, well, he said, we're working on one right now that's been off gassing for 15 years. And they have to test every year to see the soils. And so it becomes a cost to me, and I think Carl and I had a brief discussion about this. I would rather we bear the cost of this under our existing conditions that we have. Because we have a fund set up to pay for extra costs. I think it's better we deal with this now. And it's done, it's completely done, there are no more issues. I will be talking to abutters about this, we do have one abutter, who will require me to have a talk with them about it, and I will take all this information and lay it all out for them and tell them how we responded, and that's all I know to do, but I think that will get resolved. Now, go ahead.
So just so I'm clear on this, the tests that we did that were done, and they came back and there were 2 spots under the Public Works building, that's all been taken care of. And the state has accepted it.
No, the state has not accepted it.
Okay, so is that delaying the process? Because if they come back and say, we've got to do more, we can't be building.
The only way they would do more is that if they were to ask for additional testing between the building and the wetlands. That's the only issue that Vertier thinks is of any relevance to the job. They're not going to ask for additional soil removal. We've taken all the soil out. Vertier is convinced of that. And the state generally follows the environmental scientists' directions.
So we're just waiting for the state to say, okay, go ahead.
Yes, and that won't happen until we've actually done this, the tests come back, so the sequence is, we get the test back, Vertier arranges for the disposal, which should be by next week. They come and get the material, it all goes to Loudon and gets disposed of. We get the paperwork back, Vertier files with the state. At that point, the state closes it, or they say we'd like something else done. It is possible, but Vertier doesn't think so because our spill is not large and it's very contained and it's not an underground tank. So that's to our advantage. We did not have an underground tank that had been leaking, plenteous amounts of petrol into the soils.
So your plan is to start the building of the Public Works before you get the state okay?
We have already put the concrete walls in. Because Vertier told us there was no reason for us not. We will erect the structure of the Public Works building. We will know by the time the structure of the Public Work building is up, if the state is going to demand any other work. For example, have you ever seen a radon system that they put underneath the house now? They basically take tubing, perforated tubing, and they run it underneath the house to collect the radon gas, and then it's simply piped up and let go into the atmosphere. They sometimes do that with where there's been pollution and it's left under a building. They could ask for that. It's not a very expensive solution, but that is a possibility. But again, Vertier did not think the level of our contamination warranted any. They were not concerned about that. They don't consider us to be exposed, it'd be the best way to say it, to more expenses from the state. They don't think the state's gonna ask for anything.
Okay,
Right, that and $5 get you a cup of coffee at
Yeah.
Starbucks, right? So we don't know, but that's Vertier's best take on this. So Corinne and I went through the process of asking the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, who is our insurer, if they would insure this. The answer is no. Reason being is there was no actual spill that is a recorded event. And they said, the other thing they said was, who knows when the spill occurred? The spill we would have had to have a known spill. We've had to occur while we were covering you. And if we don't have a known spill date, or it was, it's a spill date too far in the past, there's no coverage. So no insurance coverage. So now that takes us to the next point, which is there is a fund called the Vermont Petroleum Cleanup Fund. This fancily named fund is designed to help defray the cost of the removal and the disposal of contaminated soils have been contaminated primarily by underground storage tanks. So every gas station that's ever been renovated that you've ever seen where they pulled the old tanks out, every one of them is leaked. And I mean literally every one of them. So there's literally sometimes tens of thousands of cubic yards of soil that have to be removed. It's a very expensive process. Like I said, I was involved in one where I think the amount, it was a tiny site. I think they spent $500,000 remediating the site. It gets expensive fast. We don't have that situation. Now, I talked to Verter, I said, so Vermont Petroleum Cleanup Fund will help us, right? And they said no, because Vermont deals primarily with actual underground tanks. We did not have an underground tank. All of our leakage was from above ground tanks or spillage or accidental discharge of fuels. So I said to them, well, can we protest to them? And they said, you absolutely can. And then they said something really interesting, which the next day I actually found out was absolutely true. The Vermont Petroleum Cleanup Fund is in financial trouble. They don't have the money. They have unpaid bills for cleanups, and some of these cleanups happened several years ago. So the chances of us being covered by VPCF, I think are very small. So the cost is gonna fall to us as the town. Right now, that cost is about $36,000. Now, any other questions about that part of this? You know, I've done my best to explain what happened, how we got here, what we've tried to do to get someone else to take responsibility for paying this. None of that happened. It's our town garage. We're gonna pay for this. So that brings us to the issue of change orders. We have spent with this change order this change order, by the way, does not go to the contractor. This will be written directly, we'll have a contract directly with Verter. And with the Verter's $36,000, we have reached just about the halfway point in the money, the $300,000 that we set aside for change orders for the project. We're right almost exactly at 150, right? So obviously, we've had an $89,000 change order and a $36,000 change order, none of which really fell in the category of being typical building expenses. One was for the sprinkler system, the other one was for this unexpected and unknown cost. Well, we have to spend this money, so now we're at $150,000. When we had originally talked about this, we discussed that for the first X amount of dollars, I would be able to authorize change orders. After a certain number of dollars or over a certain amount, Carl would have to get involved. And then once Carl hit a certain amount or over a total amount, then the select board have to be involved. We are at the point now where the select board has to be involved based on our original discussion. So from this point forward, we have a couple of options. The select board, from this point forward, the select board will need to approve every change order, regardless of size, based on the discussions that we had at the beginning.
Let me just chime in here, Don. The approximate 90,000 there for the sprinkler, that was agreed upon by the entire select board. Okay, so that basically puts money back in on my end of it.
Okay,
Okay, so at this point in time, instead of calling special meetings all the time, I am basically authorized up to approximately another 90,000.
okay,
Okay,
okay.
so, and I just want to throw that out there because,
Carl, that's the best of all worlds.
so,
That's the best, because you guys don't want to manage the change order process for this project. You just don't. I got one today for $1,200. And it's 100% legitimate because the mechanical contractor has to put a specialized 6-inch valve on the sprinkler pipe that's coming in that nobody knew about until the mechanical guy said, oh, you've changed the water service from 2-inch to 6-inch. Now you need a specialized valve. Okay, nobody saw it. That's the kind of stuff that we deal with. I hope, and I think that we're through discovery. We don't have a lot more digging to do, a little bit. The contractor has been diligent to keep us aware of expenses that they see coming. They don't have really anything that is out there. We've straightened out our mechanical issues. We will have a couple of electrical change orders that we know are coming. One is for some additional lights on the fire station at the front that Mike Murdoch has asked for. The other one is we have a change order coming for powering up the fuel pump that we have that's adjacent to the town garage that didn't have, we missed putting power to it. There just was nothing in the drawings. So we've got those two things coming. Those are both fairly small. So Carl, part of this then would be, according to your comfort level, if you want to authorize me to continue to approve smaller change orders, you can do that, or they can all become a discussion between you and me. I'm amenable to either approach.
Well, I'd like to kind of stick to our original version of this. And I believe that you were up to what, 50,000?
All right.
And where does that sit at this point in time?
Well, the change order for Verter is going to fall in the exact same category as the.
Well, we don't have that bill yet.
We don't, but that
So-
it is going to fall in that category that will require
Well,
approval of select board.
What I'm
So
saying there is that can probably, since we don't have the bill yet, we probably won't get it until May.
Right.
We have our meeting in May there and the entire board can discuss it and work on that.
So I have done as having approved $18,404.
Okay,
And I have which change orders those are associated with, because I'm sure there've been more since then that haven't gone through the tracking system I have.
it's not that many.
so on your end there, you're still to the good there by 30,000.
Right.
I will just continue to approve these small change orders if it gets over.
Just stop spending money. Jesus.
Have you not gotten to know me?
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna spend money.
Um,
I'm gonna spend money to keep the project moving at the highest rate I can go, and I'm gonna spend it as intelligently as I can.
Okay, that's the key word. So,
So that's fine, and I think I have a limit, I have a single limit of $10,000.
10, yeah, I believe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
10
fine.
with a cumulative
I
effect.
see no reason why this will not suffice us, perhaps for the balance of the job. I hope it will.
Well, I'm really hoping it will.
Me too. So, and we're going, I think we're, like I said, from everything I can look at the job at this point, I think we're going in that direction.
Great.
Then, and frankly, they are pounding the job. They will have, in 2 weeks, they'll have the exterior framework up, entire framework up for the fire station. It'll be up. The entire outside perimeter of the building, trusses on, sheeting on. Then they're gonna go over and start on they'll move over and start on the garage, and they'll do the garage in probably 8 days. Again, it's just the exterior framework, and they do all that. And then while they move from one to the other, the excavator drops back and does all of the work inside the building for the plumbing that has to come up through the floor. Like, for example, we have these huge trench drains that are they require very precise placement. It's all done with lasers and everything else. And the concrete has to slope to these. It's very detailed. They do all that while the framer is away on the other side, then they pour the slab, and then they go, it's Katie bar the door, they work on the outside of the building and the inside at the same time. They have some interior framing to do, all those walls that have to go up for the mechanical rooms and the bathrooms and the offices and the kitchen, those all happen after the slab goes in. But those happen over a span of a couple of days, and then they start running, water and electric, and it'll go really quick then.
Okay,
Lisa, did you have anything to add on the whole threshold discussion? These are what I've been tracking. It's not from those finance standpoint. It's just,
That doesn't include that they're there.
no.
All right, But we can take that up at a full board meeting, and I think if the board takes action on it, rather than leaving it up to Don and Carl, we can ensure that they're well below their limits and they can continue doing the small stuff. I think it's a good strategy.
Okay. Any other questions for Don or Andy? I want to thank you both there for the time you put into this,
Thank you.
and I'd like to thank you also there for limiting the number of phone calls to me.
You're well.
Has that happened yet, or is that aspirational?
Well, I do have wish lists.
I was only gonna call them anymore with kudos.
Oh, excellent.
All right, moving on, we have Public Works. We've been awarded thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
They're awarding a grant here for a sign package. This is to meet OSHA requirements. And it is a lengthy document, however, Tracy had gone through this and had applied for this a while back. So I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion that we execute the grant agreement for the sign package, 6 sign stands, 2 roadwork ahead signs, 2 be prepared to stop signs, 2 flagger ahead symbol signs, 2 lighted stop slow paddles, 2 compliant class 3 vests, and 15 28-inch cones.
All right, we have a motion, second by Claire. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. That is the top one here. You didn't put my little sticky pads. Wow. 420. Oh, I know what was supposed
Water bill?
to.
Celebrating my mom's birthday. Getting my dog license.
We do all kinds of fun stuff here.
Now, isn't there something else?
For in this, insurance, that's just because it was the back of it, yeah. Okay.
All right, we have the fiscal year 27 annual financial plan there for the roads. We have it estimated here at $547,387. And basically certifying that the funds raised by the municipal taxes are equivalent to or greater than a sum of at least $300 per mile of each mile of class 1, 2, and 3 town highways.
Just a side question here is the Bridge Road project going to be all of Bridge Road? No.
No, it's just on up and around the corner, or it was to the corner.
I think it was just 2.
I think it was to the corner. Yeah.
So
This is from Route 2.
from Route 2 to basically to Fifi Point? Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the annual financial plan.
Okay. Harry makes the motion, Frank seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Do we all sign this one, Corinne?
This one we all signed.
Well, that's getting passed around. I will make a motion to approve the fiscal year 26 Better Roads Category A road erosion inventory.
Okay, Harry makes the motion to to the Better Roads Category A road erosion inventory. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Bill seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, which one only needs my signature? Authorized represent.
Yep, somebody for help then.
Zero.
Okay, on to Lisa, treasurer.
This is just asking for your permission to have me be an authorized representative for the town in anything that has to do with the DWSRF loans.
I'll make a motion to appoint Lisa as the representative for our water infrastructure financing programs.
That'll be in addition to Corinne and Andy, who already are, but I could get copied on the information.
You need it the most.
Yeah. I'll second
I
it.
have misforwarding her some emails and it's been,
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, motion carries. This one here we all sign.
Yes.
Okay, on to delinquent tax collection.
Bring this looking back at past agendas and realize that it was last April that you authorized me to, retain the town attorney. Or, the delinquent tax collector, because as delinquent tax collector, I cannot retain the attorney on my own. We have to authorize the spending. So we talked about it and Corinne thought maybe it should be a yearly thing. Or did you, was it a blanket? So we kind of didn't know, so we put it on there.
Well, I'll make a motion to authorize Lisa Keyworth to retain the town attorney for tax sales and to collect incurred legal fees as well.
Okay. All set, Harry?
Yeah.
All right, I have a motion by Harry. Do I have a second?
Frank. I'll second.
Frank seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries.
And I suppose it does make sense for us to align this with Lisa's term.
that does, so we'll just keep it an annual thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Cause you gotta elect a treasurer every year, right?
But it's delinquent tax collector, that's.
And then,
Tax collector is elected and it's every 3 years. But still, that's a good point that it changes if we just do a blanket. And just kind of operate off of that and then it changes. And so, I mean, the reason you've requested is because VLCT recommended it as best practice because you're not a purchasing agent, which to me means at some point somebody used this as part of litigation to try and get out of a tax sale. And so it's just kind of closing the gaps of potential ways that people can.
so do we
Direct process
continue
now.
this every three
And it-
or coincide there with Lisa's term and then go every 3 years, or shall we do this every year?
Well, we did it last year because it coincides with May 20th coming up in the delinquent tax process starting. So. That's, I think, why we asked last year.
man, I guess it can't hurt if we do it on an annual basis, because if someone resigns and we're on a 3-year term schedule and all of a sudden it's not on the calendar, you could have someone acting without the prior authorization to retain counsel, so.
Especially if they start acting before they go to the VLCT training.
Yeah.
And it's not on their radar.
I guess annually makes sense from a cautious perspective.
Okay,
A reminder in that system.
are we all set on that? All right, under correspondence, we have the green up letter there from West Solid Waste. And we have the
Free tires.
tire program, 75 tires there, they're allowing the town here, if you can keep track of that. Joe has offered to volunteer his time. along with myself there, and we will do the trash pickup. on 2nd of May, I believe it was. So, other than that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Harry makes a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Claire seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. We are now adjourned at 5:55